Julius Caesar had been away from Rome for nearly a decade, conquering Gaul and building an army loyal not to the Senate but to him. His victories made him powerful. His popularity made him dangerous. And in the marble halls of the Republic, that danger was growing. While Caesar expanded Rome's borders in the west, his rivals in the capital plotted to contain him. The Senate, fearing his return, ordered him to disband his army and return as a private citizen. If he obeyed, he would walk into courtroom sand, possibly his own execution. If he refused, it would mean civil war. Caesar had no doubts about the stakes. He had enemies in high places, men who envied his fame, feared his ambition, and hated his reforms. Still, for weeks, he stalled. He sent letters, negotiated through envoys. But the Senate, led by his former ally Pompey Magnus, refused compromise. In the winter of 49 BCE, Caesar led a single legion to the Rubicon River, invisible boundaries separating his province from Rome itself. Legally, no general could cross it under arms. But Caesar did not hesitate. He looked at the water, then at his soldiers. Alea iacta est, he said. The die is cast. With that step, the Roman Republic began to unravel. Caesar's gamble was precise. He advanced with Legio XIII, not as a conqueror, but as a liberator. His message was simple. He was defending Rome from corruption, not seizing it for himself. Towns along his path surrendered without a fight. Soldiers defected to his banner. Local magistrates, once loyal to Pompey, opened their gates. Caesar moved with speed, precision, and calculation. In just a few days, the balance of power had shifted. In Rome, panic spread. The Senate had no army ready to meet him. Pompey and his allies fled the capital, taking what gold they could from the treasury and burning state records behind them. They retreated to Brundisium, hoping to regroup in Greece. Meanwhile, Caesar entered Rome unopposed. No battle was fought, no swords drawn. The city heart of the Republic had been abandoned by those who claimed to defend it. But Caesar didn't celebrate. His true war was just beginning. He needed ships, supplies, and control over the Italian peninsula before he could face Pompey's legions across the sea. Time was short, and every step forward risked turning public favor into suspicion. Yet one thing was already clear. Caesar had crossed more than just a river. He had crossed a point of no return. Rome would never be the same again. Pompey had once been the most powerful man in Rome. He had marched in triumph, cleared the seas of pirates, and governed vast provinces from Spain to the Levant. But now, as Caesar entered the capital unopposed, Pompey was in retreat, his influence slipping as fast as the Senate's grip on power. From the port city of Brundisium, Pompey prepared to escape across the Adriatic. His plan was clear: abandon Italy, regroup in Greece, and raise a full army from the eastern provinces, men loyal to the old republic and loyal to him. Caesar arrived too late to stop him. Pompey's fleet had already sailed, but Caesar did not hesitate. He secured Italy with stunning speed, capturing Sicily, Sardinia, and Spain in a series of rapid campaigns. Each victory meant fewer allies for Pompey and more grain, ships, and silver for Caesar. The Senate, now fractured, could no longer offer unified resistance. Some senators joined Pompey in exile. Others remained in Rome silent, neutral, or terrified. Caesar, instead of punishing them, offered clemency. This was no reign of terror. It was strategy. He knew that fear could control a city, but mercy could win an empire. By 48 BCE, the Mediterranean was preparing for one of the greatest confrontations in Roman history. Caesar's forces crossed into Greece, chasing Pompey across mountains and coastlines. But here, Caesar faced a problem he hadn't known in Gaul: supply lines. His men were exhausted. They had marched from the Alps to Apulia, crossed the sea, and now found themselves in hostile terrain far from home. Pompey, in contrast, commanded a larger army backed by Roman nobles, foreign cavalry, and a secure base in Thessaly. For the first time, Caesar was outnumbered. Pompey refused open battle. He harassed Caesar's army, cut off their foraging, and blocked reinforcements. The strategy was slow but effective. Morale in Caesar's camp began to falter. Disease spread. Hunger followed. But Caesar was relentless. He built siege lines. He forced river crossings. He marched in rain and heat and mud. And in every action, he reminded his men what they fought for, not just a general, but a vision of Rome where veterans were rewarded, debts forgiven, and greatness restored. Pompey's advisors begged him to attack. "Crush Caesar now," they said, "while his men are weak." But Pompey hesitated. He feared Caesar's experience and perhaps remembered their former friendship. The standoff dragged for months. Then came a turning point. At Dyrrhachium, Caesar launched a bold siege, trying to trap Pompey against the coast. But this time, Caesar failed. Pompey broke through and inflicted real casualties. It was Caesar's first major setback and nearly his last. But even in defeat, Caesar adapted. He retreated inland, regrouped, and marched south into Thessaly. Pompey followed. There, near the small town of Pharsalus, the two armies finally prepared for battle. The day before the clash, Caesar spoke to his men. Many had served him for over a decade. They were veterans of Gaul, of Spain, of the Rubicon. He reminded them of their victories not for gold or glory, but for survival, for honor, and for Rome. And the next day, they would face Romans again, because this was no foreign war. It was brother against brother, senator against soldier. Old Rome against new ambition. The Battle of Pharsalus would decide the future of the Republic. The fields of Thessaly were quiet on the morning of battle. Two Roman armisance brothers under the same republic now faced each other across the dry plains near Pharsalus. Pompey had every advantage. His army was larger, rested, and well supplied. He had cavalry from the east, archers from Crete, and the full backing of Rome's elite. His generals urged him to strike, and for the first time in months, he agreed. Caesar, outnumbered nearly 2-1, prepared his men without fear. These were veterans of Gaul, of Spain, of rivers crossed and sieges endured. They had marched thousands of kilometers. Many were barefoot, but none broke rank. Before the battle, Caesar addressed his troops not as a ruler, but as a fellow soldier. He reminded them what they fought for, not for his glory, but for survival, for justice, for a Rome that remembered its soldiers. Then he took his place in the front line. Pompey believed his cavalry would decide the battle. On the left flank, he placed thousands of horsemen with orders to break Caesar's right and then circle behind. It was a classic maneuver. Caesar saw it coming. He quietly reinforced his right flank with a hidden fourth linea line of spearmen trained to hold their thrusts until the enemy drew close. They had no shields, no horses, just discipline and timing. The battle began with a thunder of hooves and shouted commands. Dust filled the air, arrows flew. Legion met legion. Pompey's cavalry charged as expected, slamming into Caesar's right. The lines bent, but they did not break. Then, as the horsemen overextended, Caesar gave the order. The hidden fourth line advanced. Spears thrust upward into charging cavalry. Not with power, but precision. Horses panicked. Riders fell. In moments, the left flank of Pompey's army collapsed in confusion. Caesar did not hesitate. He drove the center forward. His infantry surged, shields locked, pushing Pompey's men into retreat. The battlefield turned, Chaoticon's disciplined ranks breaking under pressure, dust and blood clouding every command. Pompey watched from his camp. He had expected Caesar's men to break. Instead, it was his own army dissolving in front of him. He fled. By nightfall, thousands of Pompey's soldiers had surrendered. Thousands more lay dead. Caesar, victorious, walked the field searching for his former friend. But Pompey was gone, sailing south to Egypt. Pharsalus was more than a military victory. It was a turning point. The moment where one man's genius defeated the full weight of the Roman elite. And yet, Caesar showed no triumph, no celebration. He ordered the wounded treated on both sides. He spared prisoners. He made no speech, because this war was not over. And the wounds it left behind would change Rome forever. Pompey fled to Egypt seeking refuge from the Ptolemaic court he once helped restore. But Egypt, locked in its own royal power struggle, no longer served Rome. The young pharaoh, Ptolemy XIII, saw Pompey not as a guest, but a problem. On the shore near Pelusium, Pompey was betrayed. As he stepped from his ship, Roman soldiers shired by the Egyptians stabbed him in the surf. His head was cut off and preserved in a jar, meant as a gift for Caesar. When Caesar arrived days later, he was shown the trophy, but instead of joy, he wept. Pompey had been his rival, yes, but also his son-in-law, his peer, his friend. Caesar remained in Egypt longer than anyone expected. The court was in chaos. Rival siblings Cleopatra and Ptolemy at war. Caesar chose to support Cleopatra, and with her, he fought a brief but brutal campaign. The Alexandrian War ended with Ptolemy dead and Cleopatra restored to the throne. But while Caesar lingered, Rome burned with questions. Was he coming back as a general or a king? In 46 BCE, Caesar returned to the capital with unmatched power. He held games, passed reforms, built monuments. He forgave enemies. He expanded citizenship. He was hailed as dictator for 10 years, then for life. But with each new title, the fear grew. Statues appeared with golden wreaths. Coins were struck with his face. The Senate began to resemble a stage where loyalty was public and doubt was dangerous. Then came the final blow. Caesar entered the Senate House wearing the purple robes of royalty. For many senators, this was the end of the Republic in all but name. A conspiracy began. Old names Brutus, Cassius, Decimus met in quiet halls. They didn't agree on what should come after Caesar, but they agreed on one thing: he could not remain. On the Ides of the 4th of March 4 BCE, Caesar entered the Curia of Pompey. A crowd gathered to greet him. Friends stood beside him, and then the knives came out. He was stabbed 23 times. His blood stained the marble at the base of Pompey's old statue, and as he fell, Rome changed. The Republic did not return. What followed was more war, more emperors, more blood. But the name Caesar would live on, whispered in every palace, echoed in every crown, because Julius Caesar had not just crossed the Rubicon, he had reshaped history. Though Caesar fell, his legacy outlived the Republic he helped destroy. Rome would never again be ruled by the Senate alone. From emperors to autocrats, his name became a symbol of power admired, feared, and never forgotten. Like and subscribe for more history brought to life.